They say sometimes a man spends his whole life chasing dreams. Some chase money, some chase success, some chase fame. But for me, it was never about myself. For me, it was always about my younger sister. My name is Daniel. I am 30 years old, and every step I took in life was for her happiness, for her future, for her wedding. I still remember the first day I held her hand when she was a child. I was 10 years old. She was just born. My father told me, "She is your responsibility now. You are the elder one. You have to protect her." And those words never left my mind. They became the foundation of my entire life. Maybe too strong, maybe too heavy, but I accepted it without question. When I turned 20, I started my first job. It was in a small garage, the kind of place where your hands stay black with grease all the time, where the smell of oil follows you everywhere. I used to come home late and tired, but when I entered the house and saw my sister Sana, her smile would erase everything. Her laughter was the only reward I needed. I told myself, I will save money. I will work harder. One day, I will give her a wedding that no one can forget. One day, she will stand tall, with pride. Life was never easy. Jobs came and went. Sometimes I worked as a delivery boy, sometimes in a warehouse. Sometimes I stood outside factory gates during long night shifts. There were days when my body was exhausted. My mind was screaming for rest, but my heart kept whispering her name. My sister, her future, her happiness. Nothing else mattered to me. People around me used to laugh. They said, "Daniel, you are wasting your life. You are young. You should live for yourself. You should think about your own future." But I never listened. I never cared, because deep inside I knew my reason, my purpose, my dream. My sister deserves the best, and if I have to break myself to give her that, I will. Every month when I got my salary, I took almost all of it and handed it to my mother. She used to keep it in a small wooden box inside her cupboard. She called it the wedding box. I kept only a little for my own food and travel. The rest was for my sister. I did not buy new clothes. I did not buy new shoes. I did not go out with friends. Everything was sacrificed for that one box, for that one dream. Years passed, and my sister grew. She became a graceful and intelligent young woman. I watched her study. I watched her smile. I watched her face the world. And every day I felt more like her father than her brother. I guided her. I protected her. I gave her advice. Sometimes too much, but always from love, always from care. Then one evening my parents told me about a proposal. They said a good family had come. The boy had a stable job. He was polite, respectful, from a good background. They said this was the right time. I still remember that night. My mother looked at me and said, "Daniel, what do you think?" And I looked at my sister. I saw her shy smile, her lowered eyes, and I knew the answer. I said yes. I said, if she is happy, then I am happy. Even though inside I felt a storm. I knew this meant more responsibility, more sacrifice, but I accepted it without a second thought. From that day, my life changed completely. I started working double shifts, mornings and nights. Sometimes I slept only 2 hours, sometimes not at all. My body started breaking. My health started falling. My friends warned me. They said, "You cannot go on like this." But my mind kept saying, "Keep going. Fill the wedding box. Nothing else matters." There were nights when I came home so tired that I could not even eat. I lay down on the floor because my bed felt too far. But when I thought of my sister walking in her bridal dress one day, my eyes opened again. I stood up again. I worked again. Because that picture gave me strength. That picture was my fuel. I missed birthdays. I missed celebrations. I missed moments of my own life. But I told myself it was worth it. One day, when she smiles at her wedding, I will forget all the pain. I will forget all the loneliness. I will forget all the scars on my body and my soul. Because her smile will heal me. But something inside me started to change slowly. I began to feel invisible. My parents stopped asking me about my health. My friends stopped calling. And even my sister sometimes forgot how much I was giving. She was busy in her world, in her dreams. And I was just the silent shadow behind her, the silent worker, the silent sacrifice. And yet I kept telling myself, this is love, this is family, this is my duty. I remember one particular night. It was raining heavily. I was walking home after finishing a shift. My shoes were torn, my clothes were wet, and I had only $5 left in my pocket. I could have taken a bus, but instead I walked. because I knew tomorrow morning I needed those $5 for her wedding box. I laughed to myself in the rain. I said, "Daniel, you are crazy. You are giving your whole life away." But then I thought maybe this is the only way I can give meaning to my existence. Maybe this sacrifice is my destiny. The closer the wedding day came, the harder I worked, the more restless I became. I wanted everything to be perfect. I wanted every detail to shine. I wanted my sister to look like a queen. I wanted people to say, "What a wedding, what a brother, what a sacrifice." I wanted recognition not for myself, but for my love for her, for my loyalty to my family. And yet somewhere deep inside me, a fear was growing. A small voice kept asking, "Will they even remember what you did? Will they even care? Or will you just be a shadow standing at the edge?" I tried to silence that voice, but it kept coming back, louder each time. Part 1 of my story is this: the journey of my sacrifices, the endless work, the endless nights, the dreams I built, the hopes I carried, and the fear I tried to hide. The wedding was coming closer. The day that I thought would be my victory, my peace, my reason to finally rest. But destiny had a different plan, and I was not ready for what was about to come. The wedding day was coming closer. Every morning I woke up with both excitement and fear. I had worked for 10 years for this moment. I had given my blood and sweat. I had lost my health. I had lost my youth. But I had never lost hope. I believed that this day would be the reward of everything I had endured. But deep inside my chest, a strange heaviness was growing, as if my soul was trying to tell me something I did not want to hear. The house was full of noise. Relatives started arriving. My mother was busy with arrangements. My father was meeting people. My sister was smiling and glowing. Everyone was busy, but I felt like a shadow. I was everywhere, yet nowhere. I carried boxes. I lifted chairs. I decorated lights. But nobody noticed me. Nobody asked me how I was. Nobody remembered that this wedding was standing on my shoulders. Sometimes I wondered if I had disappeared from their hearts. One night before the main ceremony, I went to the small room where the wedding box was kept. I opened it slowly. I touched the bundles of money, the jewelry, the things I had gathered piece by piece over the years. My hands were shaking. I thought about every drop of sweat, every tear, every lonely night that had created this box. I whispered to myself, "This is your life, Daniel. This is your entire life in this box, and tomorrow it will no longer be yours." In that moment I wanted to cry, but no tears came. I wanted to scream, but no voice came. I only sat there in silence, staring at the box, feeling both proud and empty. Proud that I had done it. Empty because I had nothing left for myself, not even a dream, not even a small plan. Just this box and the wedding that would happen tomorrow. Morning came. The sun rose. The house was filled with relatives and noise, laughter and music. Everyone was wearing new clothes. Everyone was talking and smiling. I wore the same old suit I had used in my cousin's wedding years ago. I did not care about myself. I only cared that my sister looked perfect. And she did. When I saw her in her bridal dress, my heart melted. She was glowing. She looked like a queen. And for a moment, I felt maybe this was worth it. Maybe everything was worth it. But destiny had a cruel surprise waiting for me. I still remember the exact words. My father came to me with a serious face. He said, "Daniel, I need to talk to you." I followed him to the corner. He looked at me with hesitation, and then he said something I never expected. He said, "We have decided that you will not be part of the main ceremony. The groom family believes that for the image of the family, it will be better if you stay out of the stage. You work hard. We know, but your presence might not look suitable in front of the guests. Please understand, this is for the respect of the family." For a few seconds, my mind went blank. I stared at him. I thought I had misheard. I thought it was a joke. I even smiled weakly and said, "What do you mean?" But he repeated the same words. He said, "You cannot be there. You can watch from the side, but you will not stand with us. You will not be part of the photographs. You will not sit on the stage, because the family image is more important." I felt the ground slipping under my feet. My chest burned. My throat was dry. I wanted to shout. I wanted to ask if they had forgotten who had built this day, if they had forgotten the sleepless nights, the broken body, the lost years, the endless sacrifices. But no words came out, only silence. I looked at my father. I looked at my mother standing behind him. She avoided my eyes, and I realized it was not just his decision. It was theirs. It was everyone's decision, except mine. I went outside. I sat alone near the gate. People passed me without noticing. Children laughed. Women sang. Men smoked and talked. But I was invisible. I was erased from the story I had written with my own blood, and the pain was unbearable. It was like someone had taken a knife and slowly cut my soul. Not once, but again and again. When the ceremony started, I stood in the far corner. I watched my sister walk to the stage. She was smiling. She was glowing. She was living the dream I had built for her. But I was not part of it. I was not even in the frame. I was the shadow watching from the distance, and the world had no idea. In that moment, I felt two people inside me. One was proud. Proud that she was happy. Proud that she was safe. Proud that I had kept my promise. But the other was broken, shattered, destroyed, asking questions with no answers. What about me? What about my place? What about my sacrifices? Did they mean nothing? Did I mean nothing? As the night went on, I stood in the same corner. The music was loud. The lights were bright. But my world was dark. My ears were filled with noise. But inside me was only silence. I smiled when someone passed. I nodded when someone looked. But inside, I was dying. Piece by piece. Later that night, when everyone was busy, I walked out to the empty street. The sky was full of stars. The air was cold. I sat on the pavement and looked up. I whispered to myself, Daniel, this is your reward. This is what you worked for. This is what you gave your life for. And now you have nothing. Not even a place on the stage of your own sister wedding. Tears finally came. They rolled down my face. I wiped them quickly before anyone could see. I told myself, do not cry. You are a man. You are strong. But inside, I was a child who just wanted to be loved, to be seen, to be valued. Not for what he gave, but for who he was. That night, I made a promise to myself. I promised that from this day, I will live differently. I will not destroy myself for others. I will not erase my own existence for the sake of an image. I will rebuild. I will rise. I will become someone who lives for himself too, not just for others. But at that moment, the pain was too fresh, too deep, too raw, and all I could do was sit under the cold sky and let the silence swallow me. The night after the wedding was the hardest night of my life. I sat in my small room staring at the ceiling. I could still hear the music in my ears. I could still see the lights in my eyes. But I was not part of it. I was just a silent shadow in the background. My heart felt empty. My body felt heavy. I kept asking myself why. Why after everything? Why after all the years? Why after every sacrifice? They pushed me out. They erased me from the stage of my own sister life. I tried to sleep, but sleep never came. I turned left and right. I closed my eyes again and again. But inside me, there was a storm. Every moment of my past was replaying in my mind. The garage where I first worked, the long nights at the factory, the rain when I walked home with torn shoes, the empty stomachs, the broken health, and then the wedding box, the one I filled with my life, the one I handed to them. And now it was gone, and so was I. In the morning when I stepped out of my room, the house was quiet. The relatives had left. The chairs were empty. The lights were off. My mother was cleaning. My father was sitting silently. My sister was gone with her new family. And I felt a strange silence, not just in the house, but in my heart. It was as if everything I had lived for was over, as if my purpose had ended with the wedding night. I wanted to talk. I wanted to shout. I wanted to tell my parents how much they had hurt me. But when I looked at their faces, I stayed silent. Maybe they did not even realize what they had done. Maybe they thought it was nothing. Maybe they thought I would forget. But I knew I would never forget. This wound was too deep. This wound was not on my skin. It was on my soul. For days I walked around the house like a ghost. I had no energy, no reason, no plan. I did not go to work. I did not talk to friends. I just sat in the corner thinking, who am I now? If I am not the brother who sacrificed everything, then who am I? If my whole life was built around my sister wedding, and now that wedding has erased me, then what is left for me? One evening, I went to the old cupboard where the wedding box used to be. It was empty now, just a hollow space. I touched the wood with my fingers, and I felt tears in my eyes. I whispered to myself, this box was my life, and now it is gone. Just like my value, just like my place. And I broke down. I cried like a child. I cried until my eyes were dry. I cried until I had no voice left. But in that brokenness, something started to grow. A small thought, a small seed. Maybe this was not the end. Maybe this was the beginning. Maybe I had to rebuild myself from nothing. Maybe I had to find Daniel again. The real Daniel. Not just the brother. Not just the provider. But the man who had his own dreams, his own worth, his own life. It was not easy. Every morning I still woke up with pain, with memories, with anger. But I forced myself to step outside. I forced myself to go back to work. I forced myself to talk to people again. My body was weak, but my mind started to push forward. I told myself, Daniel, you have lived for others for too long. Now you must learn to live for yourself, too. Still, every time I passed a wedding hall, every time I heard music, every time I saw a bride or groom, my heart twisted, my chest burned. I remembered that night, that rejection, that humiliation, and I wanted to run away. I wanted to hide, but I also wanted to fight. I wanted to prove that I was not just a shadow. I was not just a sacrifice. I was a man. I was Daniel. One day I met an old friend. He looked at me and said, Daniel, you look different. You look tired. What happened? And for the first time I spoke, I told him everything, every detail, every wound, every scar. And when I finished, he looked at me and said, You have carried too much for too long. You need to carry yourself now, not others. And his words stayed with me, like a light in the darkness. Slowly I started to change. I started saving again. But this time for myself. I started reading. I started writing my thoughts. I started dreaming small dreams. Not for anyone else, but for me. It felt strange at first, almost selfish. But then I realized it was survival. It was healing. It was the only way to stand again. Months passed. My sister visited sometimes. She was happy in her new life. She talked about her husband, about her new home, about her dreams. I listened with a smile, but deep inside I was still bleeding. I never told her what happened. I never told her how they kept me away. Maybe she did not even know. Maybe she was too lost in her own happiness. I did not want to break her peace, so I carried the pain alone. Yet that pain became my teacher. It taught me who truly valued me and who did not. It taught me that sacrifices without recognition can destroy a soul. It taught me that love without respect is poison. It taught me that sometimes the family you fight for is the same family that breaks you, and that truth is harder than any labor, any hunger, any exhaustion. Now when I sit alone at night, I ask myself, was it worth it? Was it worth giving everything? And sometimes I answer yes because she is happy, and sometimes I answer yes because she is happy, and sometimes I answer no because I'm broken, and maybe the truth is somewhere in between. Maybe the truth is that life is not fair, love is not fair, and sacrifice does not always bring reward. But still, I keep going, step by step, breath by breath, because that is what I know. That is who I am. Part 3 of my story is not about sacrifice, but about survival. Not about giving, but about finding. Not about others, but about myself. The wounds are still fresh. The memories are still sharp. But I am learning. Slowly, painfully, I am learning that Daniel is more than a brother, more than a shadow, more than a sacrifice. Daniel is a man who can stand again, even if he stands alone. My name is Daniel, and I remember the silence. After that night, it was not just silence. It was heavy. It was like the air itself had weight on my chest, and no matter how much I tried to breathe, it never felt enough. I had spent months sacrificing everything for my sister's wedding. I gave my savings. I gave up my job. I even gave away my small dreams because I thought family mattered more than anything. But when the night arrived, and I was told to stay outside, I felt like the ground was pulled from under me. I stood outside the hall, and I could hear the music inside. I could hear laughter. I could hear people dancing and celebrating. But none of that belonged to me. I was the shadow outside the walls of my own blood. The rejection was not just about missing an event. It was about losing my place in the family. It was about realizing that I was disposable in the eyes of the people I loved most. And that realization kept burning in my chest like fire. Days passed, but the pain stayed. I tried to smile at neighbors. I tried to laugh at small jokes. But deep inside, there was a storm. The storm of betrayal. I kept asking myself again and again, why was I left out? What image was so important that my presence could destroy it? Was I that unworthy? Was I that shameful? Was I really less than the people who walked proudly inside that decorated hall? I stopped visiting my parents' house. I avoided the street where relatives lived. I did not want to answer questions, and I did not want to show my broken face in front of anyone. Every time I looked into the mirror, I saw someone else. Not Daniel. I saw a man who gave everything and got nothing in return. And this reflection scared me more than anything, because it felt like I was losing myself. One night, I sat alone on my small bed, staring at the ceiling. The silence was too loud. I could almost hear voices of the past. Voices telling me that family always comes first, voices telling me that sacrifice is never wasted. But reality was different. Sacrifice was wasted because the people I sacrificed for did not value it. I clenched my fists, and I told myself no more. Daniel, you cannot let this destroy you. You cannot let this pain define your life. From that night, I decided to rebuild myself slowly, piece by piece. I woke up early and started jogging in the park. I pushed my body because I wanted to feel alive again. I wanted to prove that I still had strength inside me, after weeks of running and sweating. I realized something important does not leave you, but you can make space for it. You can carry it and still keep moving. I also started applying for jobs again. It was not easy because my confidence was broken, but I kept trying. I faced rejection after rejection, but each rejection felt smaller compared to the betrayal I had already faced then. One morning, I received a call from a small company. They wanted me to join as a manager. It was not the dream job, but it was a start. It was my chance to stand again. With my first salary, I did not buy clothes or gadgets. I bought a gift for myself, a small wristwatch. It was simple, but every time I looked at it, I remembered that time heals. I remembered that my time was still valuable, even if some people did not see it. I wore that watch every day, like a reminder that my life was still moving forward. Months passed and I became stronger. I smiled again, not fake smiles, but real ones. I found friends who respected me, not because of family name or social image, but because of who I was. They listened to my story and they did not judge me. Instead, they said, "Daniel, you are brave because you faced the worst kind of betrayal, and you are still standing." Sometimes at night, I still think about the wedding. I still remember the sound of music and the decorated lights. But now it does not burn me the way it once did. Instead, it pushes me to grow. It reminds me that I do not need validation from those who cannot see my worth. I do not need a seat in their hall to prove my existence. My existence is already enough one evening. Months after the wedding, I was walking through the city. The streets were glowing with lights. Shops were crowded, and families were enjoying food and laughter. I stopped near a mirror outside a shop. I looked at myself. I did not see the broken man anymore. I saw Daniel, the man who survived the deepest cut and still learned to stand tall. Life has a strange way of teaching us lessons. Sometimes it breaks us just to rebuild us stronger. Sometimes it throws us out just to push us toward a better path. And now when I look back, I understand that being left outside that hall was not the end of my story. It was the beginning of a new one. If you are listening to me right now, and if you have ever felt betrayed by the ones you love, if you have ever been told that you are not enough, then remember this: you are enough. You always were. You do not need permission to exist. You do not need an invitation to be valuable. You carry your worth inside you, and no rejection can take that away. This was my story. This was the truth of my journey. And if you felt even a little of my pain, if you walked with me in these moments, then do not forget to like this video and subscribe, because many more stories are waiting for you.